In this video, I'm going to show you the 5 spending traps that hit retirees the hardest during the first 12 months of retirement, and also put real numbers on them so that you can see how they apply to you. Coming up next on Holy Schmidt.
Holy Schmidt!
Gang, I talk to retirees almost every week, and those that are 6 months into retirement usually say the same thing, and that is, I planned for retirement and I expected to spend a certain amount, but I'm spending way over that amount. What's going on? And here's the thing. They're both not wrong and not being reckless, most of the time anyway. What's happening is that they didn't realize that the year that you retire, the first year that you retire, there are some adjustments that happen. And if you don't know that they're coming, they can hit you very, very hard. In fact, for a lot of retirees, the first year of retirement is the most expensive year for the next 2 decades. Dave Blanchett, the head of retirement research at Morningstar, published a landmark study on this. He tracked thousands of retirees and he found a very clear pattern. And that pattern is what he calls the smile pattern. Retirees will spend quite a bit once they first retire. It levels off shortly thereafter and stays level, and then ticks up a bit as the retiree approaches late-stage retirement due to medical costs. And the reason that the first few years are expensive has nothing to do with bad planning. It has everything to do with the next 5 points we're going to talk about, because most people don't see these coming. All right, let's jump into them. Trap number 1, if you want to call this one a trap, is what I call the freedom surge. And that is, you've worked 30 or 40 years, and now you're in retirement, and you want to do some of the things that you couldn't do before. The new car, the trip to Italy, the kitchen renovation. You get the point. None of these, by the way, are bad. We're not talking about buying a $6,000 purse or an Italian sports car. We're talking about things that people would ordinarily do in their lives. They just happen to happen all at one time. They create a spending spike, and that spike can throw off your entire retirement withdrawal plan. And a lot of people don't know that it's coming, and when they see that their spending goes up 20 or 30% over plan, they get afraid. The fix is simple, by the way. Before you retire, add up a list of all of the things you plan to do that are a bit out of the ordinary or one-off during your first 2 years of retirement. The new car, for example, or the trip, and put that money into what's called a freedom fund. This is a fund that you take outside of your normal retirement savings, specifically for what you need to do. And that way, you don't freak out, for lack of a better term, when you're spending more than your plan. Trap number 2 is the healthcare gap. If you retire before age 65, you have a problem. That problem is that you have healthcare costs, and Medicare doesn't start until you're age 65, so you need to bridge the gap somewhere. And a lot of people miss the fact that the cost of insurance falls on them entirely after they leave the workplace. And as of 2026, this gap just got a lot more expensive. The Expanded Affordable Care Act expired in 2025, and this was a healthcare supplement paid for by the government. And now that supplement isn't there, so a lot of people are seeing big spikes in the cost of their healthcare. And for a couple with an income of $84,600 or higher, there's now zero subsidy for the cost of your health care. This means a couple in their early 60s is probably going to pay somewhere between $1,800 and $3,000 a month for marketplace insurance coverage. That is a lot of money. That can be up to $36,000 in 1 year. And here's the part that really stings. If you do a Roth conversion or you sell some shares in order to cover some of these additional costs, that could push you above the $84,600 threshold. The end result, you could lose tens of thousands of dollars of premium support simply because you thought you were doing the right thing. Number 3 is what I call the first year of retirement tax surprise. And this is one that catches a lot of people off guard. Let me explain to you how it works. Let's say that you retire in June. In June, you think, I have 6 months of income. That's less than last year. Therefore, my taxes will be less than last year. And you withdraw from your 401k. And you know you're going to pay some taxes on that, but you're not entirely sure how much. Also, at the same time, you left your employer and you get a severance package on your way out the door as a thank you for 20, 30, 40 years of work. And they don't take out enough taxes. At the end of the year, the amount that you earned, quote unquote, is actually higher than the amount you earned during a normal work year. I often see retirees hit a higher tax bracket their first calendar year of retirement than in the previous year of work. It happens all of the time for these specific reasons. And it gets worse. If you happen to retire at age 63 or later, Medicare uses your income from the 2 prior years to set the Medicare Part B premium. And if you exceed certain income thresholds, that number, the premium, goes up. It's called an IRMAA surcharge. Now, just to give you an example of what I'm talking about, the standard Medicare Part B premium for 2026 is $202.90. But if your modified adjusted gross income for 2024, which is 2 years earlier, the measurement point for your 2026 premiums is over $212,000, then your Part B premium is going to increase. And it can double or even triple in some circumstances. Number 4 is one of the most dangerous. It's what's called sequence of return risk. And it's one that I put a video out on a couple of days ago. I'll put a link to that video at the end of this video. But sequence of return risk means that you retire at the wrong time, and usually you retire at the peak of your investment performance. Your portfolio looks great, and then it goes downhill very quickly from there. For example, if your portfolio drops 20% in your 10th year of retirement, that's bad, but it's manageable because you've had 9 years of growth to level up your portfolio. But if it happens year one, a 20% drop in year one, and you need to withdraw funds from your investment portfolio, then you're withdrawing your funds from a lower base. The shares went down in value. You sold them when they went down in value to pay your bills, and those same shares didn't have an opportunity to price recover. So your portfolio, the amount of shares in your portfolio is less. This, by the way, is exactly what happened to someone who retired in 2000 at the height of the dot-com bubble, and in 2008 when the global financial crisis was unfolding. There are a couple of obvious fixes here. The first is having a year or 2 or 3 years worth of cash and short-term bonds in your portfolio so that when you need funds, you're drawing from your cash, you're not selling shares. The other is to make sure that you're balanced. You have a 50-50 balance, or an appropriate balance anyway, of bond and equity investments. Because traditionally, when equity is going down, bond prices are going up. Trap number 5 is what I call identity spend. And effectively what this means is that when you retire, you spend like your station in life. For example, when you're working, you are your job. If you're a fireman, if you're a doctor, if you're an architect, if you're a plumber, whatever it is, you spend on the things that support who you are. But when you go into retirement, a lot of those things just don't apply anymore. New hobbies, new equipment, maybe even a new car, who knows? These support who you've become, not who you were. And when you transition from one type of person to another, that generally costs money. And by the way, invariably, none of it is in the budget. And individually, it doesn't feel like a big deal. But when you start stacking identity spend item on identity spend item, the numbers add up pretty quickly. The retirees who handle this well plan their identity transition before they retire, not after. And they get some of that spending out of the way in the years leading up to the day that they retire. Let me show you how this plays out with 2 people that I've been following for a long time now, Callum and Marvin Miller. They both retired at 63 with exactly the same portfolio, $1 million each. Both are married, both have similar expenses on paper. Callum didn't plan for any of these traps. In his first year, he renovated his kitchen for $35,000, took a cruise for $8,000, and bought a used car for $22,000. He pulled all of it from his IRA. That's $65,000 on top of his $40,000 annual living expenses. His total first-year withdrawals were $105,000, over 10% of his portfolio. And because the IRA withdrawal counted as income, he lost his ACA subsidy. That added another $20,000 in healthcare premiums he wasn't expecting. Marvin took a different approach. 6 months before he retired, he sat down and he made a list of every single thing that he wanted to purchase during his first 2 years of retirement. He set aside $50,000 in a separate savings account, his Freedom Fund. He also set aside $36,000 in a money market account, 2 years of his healthcare insurance bridge. When Marvin retired, his big purchases came from his freedom fund, not his portfolio. His health care came from the bridge account. His portfolio only had to cover his regular $40,000 annual expense. First year portfolio withdrawal, just $40,000. 5 years later, the gap between Callum and Marvin was over $200,000, not because they spent differently, but because they withdrew their funds differently. Marvin sourced and timed his spending over time, not at a point in time. Now, so far, I've shown you the 5 traps and how they work, but I still haven't shown you the most important thing, the math behind how to protect yourself from these 5 traps. And that's what we're going to do next. Step number 1, build your freedom fund 12 to 24 months before you retire, and put everything on that list. Vacation, home improvement, a new car, whatever it is, set that money aside in a high-yield savings account. That money does not come from your portfolio on day 1. Step 2, build a healthcare bridge if you're retiring before age 65. Know exactly what your healthcare premiums will be without the ACA subsidies. Estimate your total income for each year and understand where the ACA subsidy cliff is so that you avoid the cliff if possible. Step 3, time your retirement for tax efficiency. If you can retire in early January, it is a lot more tax efficient, in most circumstances anyway, than retiring mid-year or closer to the end of the year. That way you don't stack half a year's salary on top of your retirement withdrawals and other payouts from your employer. If that's not possible, understand your tax brackets and the implications of the withdrawals that you're taking out on your tax brackets. And always, always note that IRMAA is coming 24 months from that date. Step 4, hold on to 2 or 3 years worth of cash and short-term investments. This is your sequence of return buffer, and it will allow you to weather out a storm if the market suddenly moves against you and stays down for a little while. This alone can add years to the life of your portfolio. Step 5, understand what you're retiring to. Understand what you're going to be spending your money on, what your retirement lifestyle is going to look like. Understand if you're going to have part-time income. That's important. The retirees who struggle in their first year of retirement are almost always the ones that don't have a plan for their time. They enter retirement and they think, now what? And instead of approaching the activity that they should be doing, they spend instead. Happens all of the time. Gang, one of the biggest mistakes I see from people is that they try to model all of this on a spreadsheet and they don't connect it properly. They don't connect sequence of return risk to taxes, to IRMAA, and a whole plethora of other issues that they need to think about because it's really hard to do it on a spreadsheet. And if you're off even by one cell, then that throws everything off. On this channel, we have only 3 affiliate relationships. One is Bolden Personal Financial Planning Software. This is the personal financial planning software that I personally use. Bolden lets you model out your freedom fund, your healthcare bridge, your tax projections, and your withdrawal strategy all in one place. You input your information across 8 key financial areas, and it will show you what your first year will look like, your 5th year, your 20th year, and the years in between. You can stress test market crashes. You can model Roth conversions. You can see exactly where the ACA subsidy cliff hits your specific situation. If this is of interest to you, you can try Bolden free for 2 weeks using our affiliate link. You just go to go.bolden.com/Schmidt, and you can try the full featured software free for 2 weeks. After that, it's $12 a month, paid annually if you decide to keep it. Gang, here's the bottom line. Your first year of retirement is not a normal year of retirement. There are a lot of financial landmines. There's a lot of emotional spending that happens your first year, and a whole host of other issues that a lot of people just don't plan for. And that is why you need to pay particularly close attention to year 1. The people who do well aren't the ones with the biggest portfolios. They're the ones who separate their first year spending from their long-term portfolio, who time their income for tax efficiency, and who have a cash buffer so the market doesn't dictate their future. Callum and Marvin had the same money. They had the same expenses. They had the same retirement. But one planned very well and understood that if you don't do everything all at once, but you spread it out, the outcome is considerably better. The other wasn't so lucky. If you like this video, check out that video, Retiring into a Market Crash. Here's what happens next. Also, don't forget to check out Bolden. You just go to go.bolden.com/Schmidt, and you can try it free for 2 weeks. This is Jeff Schmidt, and I will see you in that video right there.